So I got the hydraulic cylinders and everything all mounted to make the loader portion go up and down. I got the valve mounted. Um, it's a 10-inch stroke hydraulic cylinder mounted at a pretty decent angle. Right now it lifts 200 pounds. But when I got this valve here a few days ago, the pressure was set really high to where when these cylinders would reach full extension, the engine would stall. So I turned the pressure down, and I think it went down a little bit too far. It's just as simple as this little adjustment right here. It's not that bad to fix. And then I cut this hole here larger in the frame, or this plate here, so these hoses have more movement. And I'm going to wrap that in like that stuff you find on like a seat. Like this stuff. Like this seat trim stuff. I have a bunch of that. I'm going to wrap that on there just to keep the wires from being cut up. And speaking of seat, I made the seat. I just like found some green treat plywood, and I wrapped it in, or I upholstered that. We used some 4-inch or so foam. They don't look the greatest, but for the color this machine is going to be in those gray seats, it should look pretty cool. The next thing I've got going on here is I've got this about 8 foot long or so C-channel. It's not super thick, but it should be plenty for what I'm going to do with it. And I'm going to cut that up, and I'm going to make some forks. And I'll explain it later once it's all built, because it's going to be hard to explain right now. But there's going to be a piece going across there, and then the forks can slide on it. This part here is actually going to be permanent. So I welded this solid, and then I'll chop each side here off in just a few minutes to make that not stick out and look stupid. So I'm going to get these forks made and then start getting some ideas, and I'll come back and we'll get those put on. So I got one made. I have a slight angle to it so that basically when, you got a load on it, it can bend a little bit and be straight instead of, slant down. So now to make the other one. Has this nice little bracket here, so you can just slide them side to side. This little support in the middle to help this little pin, which is just rebar, just be a little bit more supported in the middle. So my first concern that I had before I even drove it is how this thing here just bends, this red piece. So it needs something else right here on each side, and then probably like a cross brace. But that definitely needs to be improved. Secondly, these eye hooks, which I didn't think was going to have a whole lot of pulling pressure, are totally pulled apart. So I'm going to have to put a different piece of metal there for the lift cylinder to hook on. Not a huge deal. And then the thing that really shocks me is this like 1/4 inch thick by 1 inch square tubing is completely snapped. I mean, like totally snapped in half. I just tried picking up the back of that golf cart right there, which isn't super heavy, but it's pretty heavy. Alright, so I got a bunch of stuff, fixed. I got this piece here fixed. I added another piece of square tubing that's thicker than that one that's on there on the bottom. It's kind of ugly, but I welded these little tiny pieces of angle iron on there. That'll have to get, maybe cut down on the grinder and just cleaned up a little bit later on when I cut these things here off as well. I beefed up this part here, which I'm still got to weld this on, but I want to make sure it's in the exact spot I want it before doing that. I added another piece of metal inside this because this was starting to bend. I was able to pick up a pallet with a Morda, and I tried lifting up a 500-pound Sears tractor with just this fork, and I bent it. And then I had to bend that back, so that wasn't that big of a deal. But what I'm kind of thinking, I flip this fork up so we can kind of see, is that I can fit maybe like some rectangle tubing inside of this just to kind of double it up, just to make it a little bit stronger. If I use both forks together, I was able to basically run it out of lifting power and not bend anything. But if you were to have, all the weight on one fork, I would like to not be able to bend it. But that's it for up there. The next thing I'm going to do is I am going to switch this muffler out with just a different one that it looks the same. I'm going to bypass this radiator. Well, I mean, not really bypass, but kind of like, so this is a pressure hose coming right from one of the 3 pumps. I'm going to hook this directly to the return because right now there's full hydraulic pressure going through the radiator. And it seems like when you're trying to start it just by, starting it, that the engine's under a pretty good load when it's not even doing anything. It was worse until I added that valve there, but it's still, I can tell there's a little restriction in it. So I'm going to bypass or hook a line here. The radiator will still get some oil, but it won't be getting all of it. It'll still be doing something. Okay, a couple more things to show you. So I got the radiator problem figured out. So this was just attached to the hydraulic or the hydraulic triple pump by itself because there's 3 hydraulic pumps in one. That goes to the radiator now, then goes back to the reservoir. And then there's this other line here that comes out, then goes to this T, and then goes to the reservoir. So then that way all of that oil doesn't go through the radiator. There's a little bypass. I made the battery mount quite a bit better. So that's, I mean, it still sucks, but I mean, there's this spacer here that's going to be going between the metal panel that's going to go here and then the battery just to keep it in that spot. Then of course I got the seat kind of looking like a seat, and I need to take that seat and stuff off now because the next thing I'm going to be doing is a hood. So here's the material I've got for a hood. I've got 2 pieces of it, and turns out I only need the one. Galvanized. I would have used just normal metal, except I don't really want to paint the inside. I'd have to put it on there and then take it all the way back apart to paint the inside to keep it from rusting. So I'm going to get this hood kind of put on there, and I'll come back and I'll give you a little update on what's going on with the hood. So this is what I came up with for the hood. So we'll start off at the front and we'll head to the back. So made this nice little cutout for the pump that sticks past a little bit. I think I'm probably going to just leave this be. I was going to make a little cover for this, but I'm like, well, if I made a cover for it, it would go up and over this. And then that's a lot less leg room here. So I think I'd rather just look at these hoses. Key switch with hour meter. There's a blinking light. Doesn't show up on camera. Oh, there it went. Doesn't really show up on camera, but it does blink. I showed you this stuff here before. Seat has some hinges to flip up. I got to make a piece to cover up the back. Of course, a blinking light. Radiator, which I need to make some kind of bumper that comes up so if you back into something, it doesn't smash the radiator. The hood flips open like this. There's a little latch that I made, so it latches down. It latches sort of, otherwise the seat holds it. I put a different muffler on it because I was using this yesterday, and the stock engine muffler, it was getting really hot. So I made this one here because it gets the exhaust more further away from the engine. Has a nice little latch here for this, so you can flip this open, get to the carburetor or whatever else you need to get to. Another thing I would like to do is I'd like to switch out the fuel tank. This already is a different fuel tank from the one that I came with, but the problem I'm having is that you go to fill it up with gas, and you got a can with a short spout. You can't get it in here, so you end up spilling it all over the place. So I'm going to take this tank off, and I'm going to put it somewhere else, probably a different tank. I don't know where I'm going to do, or what I'm going to do with that yet, but maybe a smaller one or something shaped long and skinny right here with a hole here or something, but we'll see. But that's going to be it for this video. I've got some big stuff here planned. I've got some rims coming for some bigger tires I already have. And then paint. That should be in the same video. I got a parking brake put on each side. So you just pull that up and it locks the parking brake. So it's kind of neat. It just works on one side, but if you want both wheels locked up, you got to pull them both. I braced this up. I still have to cut this off because it's a little bit too long, but I added some more support there, and then it broke down there, so I added some more support. So it was like breaking and fixing things. But yeah, that is going to be it for this video. Next time we'll get the stuff done I was mentioning with the tires and paint and stuff, and we'll go from there. Thanks for watching.